The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know, find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, a learning experience for all ages. Tonight, our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, and I are pleased to present the continual perpetuation of the miseducation of the Negro. But before we begin, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Here we are. Greetings, greetings.
Islam.
Islam.
Dr. G.
Islam, Grand Sheik. It's so good to see you.
Yeah,
It
we
seems
back
like I haven't seen you for
for a minute, yeah.
Yeah.
You've been traveling to the Grand Canyon and stuff.
well, no, I've seen you.
Well, you've been there.
I just came back from the ATL.
Well, still, you went to the Grand Canyon, didn't you?
No,
Oh, that's the other pictures from before,
I
right?
went to Sedona.
Oh, all right. Give us a little bit of background on it.
Well,
'Cause you were showing me some of the pictures.
we were looking at a video on YouTube, and the sister was narrating and showing pictures of Sedona, and I had just been there, and so I pulled up my pictures, and she was showing.
Oh, all right.
Remember proof that we were here based on the Red Rocks effect. But anyway, that's not why we're here, y'all. So greetings and salutations and all of that good stuff. But we are happy to be back in your presence. It's been 2 weeks. Yeah, that's what it's been.
Yeah, and as we talked, we're here now to do a little bit more spell breaking.
Honestly,
Breaking some of the spells of the troglodytes operating on our land.
Yes. And so to give a little background on why we're doing what we're doing tonight. Can I do that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so I posted. I'm going to pull this up on my thing. So I while I was in the ATL, I saw a picture, and you probably
at the conference. So mention the conference.
Yeah. Oh yes. First of all, shout out to all of the beautiful sisters that came to the ATL to be with us, if you will, at the core in actually East Point in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Sister Noni Love and to her beautiful Umi for the beautiful reception there. But we had a wonderful time, Sheik, and we had we did a foundational meeting, and all of you sisters who have signed up, just will say that for the war, you will. Well, I made a mistake. I was watching us. I thought I was videotaping,
mm-hmm.
and I could see Mama Callie and I
mm-hmm.
the whole time. And then, like 3.5 hours later, I realized I never pushed record. So, but somebody, when her daughter got some of it on the phone, on her, and so we're gonna make that video available to the sisters. But we are going to be having a bigger meeting. We just needed to have a foundational meeting,
mm-hmm.
and what I liked about it was so cross generational. With
Mm-hmm.
the ages range from 10 to 79
mm-hmm.
and everything in between. So it was a really good meeting. And some of you sisters are probably on here. I see because I said so. I know you were there. So that were there, and they can speak to the time that we had. We really had a good fellowship. But back to the reason why we're doing the continual perpetuation of miseducation of the Negro. So I made a post on Facebook, and I guess while I was in or when I came back from you see this. So okay, so y'all can't see this picture, but anyway, it was a post, and it said it had a picture that's in the bottom part of the cover of this particular thing for our show. You see that the green bags, and you have Negroes are centered. And so I said, hey, Negroes, I found some of your relatives in aisle 16. How long will we accept colorable adjectives and false labels for identities? Because they call these things Negro. Well, as a result of me posting that, let me see. So someone, and I'm going to pull it up. Someone responded. Who knows me? I put it up here. At the upper left-hand corner is the two different, make sure I blocked that. I think hopefully I blocked her appellation, her name, because she's not conscious. She said, this is the Spanish word for black. Dr. G, do not spread misinformation. Come on now. If this is jest, I could understand, but the context in which you are spinning is far left. The masculine form of black is Negro. The feminine form is Negro. So somebody said to that respondent, said, think you're missing the point, responded, And then I said to this individual, I said, my point exactly. Black is an adjective, and we are not black or Negro. We have a nationality, as do Chinese or French, Nigerian, etc. We were labeled black by colonizers who sought to remove our heritage as Aboriginal indigenous people of this landmass. In legalese, among other things, black means having no standing in law. Check your family's birth records and you will see that through the generations, the same bloodline has been identified on birth and census records as mulatto, Negro, colored, black, African American. How can this be? All other ethnicities have been consistent, right? Have been consistent except the so-called black people. Furthermore, all true ethnic bloodlines are tied to a landmass, i.e. China, Chinese, Nigeria, Nigerian, Italy, Italian, etc. Please tell me where black land is, where black people originate from. The legal designation black people is a social construct, just as is the designation white people, which does not denote skin color, rather status. Do you know that many people come to America from African countries with skin darker than yours and receive quote unquote white status? My friend, I assure you, I am not spreading misinformation, but truth that has not been taught in schools or history books, but which is easily researchable if one realizes the historical deception of social engineering. So thank you for the challenge that has given rise to me providing this more informative clarification. Well, their moment. Wait a minute. Their comeback was in the bottom right here. It says, touche, they said. It is your inalienable right to state your opinion as it is mine, not up for a debate. I said what I said. I am not missing the point. It's a bag of beans, for crying out loud. Enjoying the read. Carry on, sister. So that is what Sheik, you and I were talking about. So that is what gave rise to this
your inspiration.
My inspiration for suggesting this particular class.
Dealing with the Negro problem.
Right. And so you do have a book that I know.
A couple of
books. Yeah. So it's probably one of the ones that's going to be reprinted. So it's, I don't know if you can see, it's called, the nigger problem. So
that's one
of them.
And another one is nigger industry.
Yeah, because it's a business, if you will. And I hope, we're using this as the, in from a standpoint of that's the word that's been used.
To really
and I'm not trying to be derogatory.
Aid the people.
Right.
And because we already know the agenda of the hybrids operating on the land, even that's confusing to a lot of people. And so again, as usual, here at the House of Reawakening Minds, for those of you who are sharing, are most of the scholars that come on to this platform have this information. Most of the adepts have this information, and most people, put it this way, almost all people in government have this information. It's just not a what you would call public conversation. So we decided to have some adeptus class for a lot of the neophytes that come on here, and particularly Dr. G, because as we already know, because of the social political dynamics that are taking place on the planet, and the extreme changes that are happening. It used to be, how do you say, by the year, then by the month, then by the week. Now things are occurring by the day and by the hour.
And by the minutes.
Yes. And so much of what we're sharing now is more directed to many of the neophytes that are becoming more awakened to the social engineering politics operating in the Western Hemisphere or the Maghreb. And particularly, it's important for us to help break some of the spells that have taken root, that are actually at the root of that conversation, or those statements for people who assume that you couldn't read, when in fact the matter is that person lacks certain information.
Several college degrees.
Meaning well.
Several college degrees. And I know them.
Which is indicative.
Yeah.
And it's another thing, even with, the book we did years ago about, the children's test that we shared, which showed basically the 8th grade test that most of the European children had in 1800s is equal to the college test that they have now, for our people. And even then, because one of the issues is not only the etymology, but the orthology. Which is an issue. So what I want to do, in our conversation, Dr. J, we're going to go through a few things to give some of the neophytes that are on here some points of reference, so that they can start doing some research for themselves. Because keep in mind, one of the issues that we're having right now, even as before we came upstairs to one of your offices. And you were sharing with me about the operatives taking down a couple of one or two of our videos with a warning type thing, claiming misinformation, the usual thing.
Yeah.
Now we know that's librorum, index librorum prohibitorum, and also expurgatorius. And because the time, or what you call the cycle that we measure as time, has changed, most people aren't aware that those policies aren't new. When they talk about demonetization and sanctioning.
Well, first of all, we have never, for the record, never been monetized.
Well, but I'm just saying these are terms that they use.
Yeah.
That the people hear in these days, and they think it's new. And this is back to even when you were talking about, the operations of the Jesuits operating here at North America with the Circle Church and Chancery in 54, with the King Alfred. And we're going to be skipping through a few things because we want you to note some of the references that we're having from this. From the nigger problem, from nomen substantivum, rights of indigenous people, nigger industry, tribute to the true American inventors, etc., that American culture. Also, expose, 8th grade test, final exam. And this is to indicate the ignorance, but you know that person meant well.
I do, but it's just.
Military operations, Rex 84, King Alfred. Civic relations, AA 222141. right? Breaking the chains of slavery, etc., and a few more. Then, of course, your Oxford dictionaries, your Black law dictionaries, right? Oxford dictionaries. And we got about 60 or 70 more little books here that we could show you, but you already know we can't do that in 2 hours. So we're going to go through a few points for the neophytes to bring them to a level of cognizance, of common knowledge. But again, as you said, Dr. G, it's not generally taught to the masses. And it's sort of like when people don't know that they don't know.
That's true.
You know,
But one of the things I realized, though, that people will fight to maintain their ignorance,
to defend
and defend their
the
ignorance.
dead status,
So it's
not knowing they're in a dead status. You know, and this is, again, Dr. J, where, you know, you can have a conversation with them and they will take it that the conversation is your opinion, or when you're dealing with facts, because remember, what you already know, the masses are under mind control, and so they will defend their training. They will defend their operations. Now, so we're going to go through Oxford Dictionary. I wish I even had an older one, but this will suffice for tonight. And I'll move this right here for the time being. So as you all know, and this is for the neophytes, because most of you come on here, you already know this stuff, but we're sharing this with the neophytes. So the redundancy to those of you who have etymological scholarship, you know, we're not trying to be redundant with you. We're trying to share with the neophytes and to wake up. And because the operatives, the order of the Jesuits operating here at North America, known as the Khazarian Mafia, also known by three-letter claims of people that they're not, who are running the banking system, are putting the screws on the people, because it's getting kind of hot for them around the world, because the nations of the earth stopped buying their bonds, etc., which were built. Most of them were initiated around 1862. Keep that in mind. This is for your research. So take these notes, because we won't go into a lot of things. We're going to be throwing things at you for research reference. So as you already know, the word black, and you know, like the person with those multiple degrees said that black and Negro mean the same thing, right?
Negro, yeah. Negro and
now,
Negro.
For those Negro, how was that introduced into the social order of humans? Now, Negro llevara llovero arriba, Moorish Latin mean black chimpanzee monkey. Now, when you're talking in Moorish Latin, now again, keep this in mind. This is important too for the neophytes. Spanish is a contemporary word made up to cover up Moorish history. So keep that in mind. The geographical area of Al-Andalusia and Al-Andalus, that's the masculine and feminine principle in nature, that also applies in language. That's where the assumption come from when it comes to the Negro and black. Now, in Latin, when you're making reference to inanimate objects or things, you refer to it as negra. Right? When you're referring to humans or the organic beings, it's moro. All right. Now, for some of you who are listening today, because of the geopolitics which are taking place, and because of the expressed political exercise of suppressing nations to maintain what is known as the hybrid European hegemony, there were certain moves that were made also in the Philippines. And as many of you knew, Duarte, I think he was the president for a couple of years ago for the Philippines, and he in defense of the people, he says, and you can do the research. The president for the Philippines said Yes, they call us Filipinos and Philippines, but we're not Filipinos. That's after Philip, the Romans who conquered us in the wars. We're really Moors. So they know that they're Moors. Now they said that for the record. And so you can get with that and understand that there's things taking place on the planet of nations in order to preserve their sovereignty in spite of hybrid European suppression and hegemony that are making right of claim, because they know that under the nom de guerre, Rome has claim on them. All right. So keep in mind that even as we talked about, G.O.D. God dynamics of the demon gods, so is the acronym USA. Now, remember, one of the dangers and one of the ways that they cast spells with the acronyms is that they mean multiple things. They can be positive and they can be negative. Now, so most of the people, the neophytes under training, think that USA means a country. USA means Unum Sanctum Alliance. It also means Unum Sanctum Associations. And so when you're making reference to, so now we're talking the political parties that have perpetrated on humanity, particularly since the 1800s, the mind control operations, and the date that's used, because you already know you're dealing with a generalized time period, just like when they deal with the generalized time period of the fall of the power structure of the Asiatic Moorish nation and the advent of the hybrid Germanic tribes, etc. They'll use the cycle time of 1492. And so they have a lot of rituals dealing with 1492, including the alteration of the calendar. And so you all know about the Mummers Parade, etc., being January the 1st, 1492. That will coincide with the fall of the Alhambra, 1492, January 1. All right, so you already know that. Now, dealing with the Old English word black. Now, and this is where we're going to start doing a production later. We're going to plan and do a documentary so that the people can actually see directly a lot of the things that we're dealing with. Right here at Oxford Dictionary, and I have it yellowed out, and you'll see black, right? Now, and as you had said, Dr. G, black is right after it, it's an adjective.
Right.
And it's OE, large OE, which means Old English. So now, for those who know how to read, know that when that's the etymology, that's the first point of etymology. Now they'll give you first point of etymology and down at the bottom, and then they'll give you the direct so that you can go into your etymology dictionary and go to its base origin. And it has all of your compound uses of the word, etc., and take you all the way back to Blake, which you already know, Black, Blake, and of course, it actually means pale colors, white spot, pale colors. That's what it actually means. Now, most of the people aren't, they're familiar with the general term that is used mostly at North America and then exported around the world, etc. The nom de guerre, they're used to the word or the framed word brands or brand systems. And most of the people, when they're looking at the nom de guerre, which is the official designation for pseudonyms put on people to denationalize them, which Negro, Black, colored Indians, particularly for the people in the West, are actually nom de guerre, right? So the people would know them as brands. Those who are sociologists who deal with social engineering know that they're nom de guerre. And so we want to bring up the standard of knowledge with the neophytes out there to these terms, which are important, because we're still going back to the issue of heritability. Now, as you know, Dr. J, many of the people are familiar with the hybrid Europeans putting nom de guerre or on the people, or what they would call branding, and most of their concepts are where the hybrid Europeans who claim to own the defeated Aboriginal people would put their name on them as property. And they assumed that that was the brand only.
Mm-hmm.
And or sometimes they would actually put a hot iron on their back or even on their forehead to often cover up hex alpha. Because a lot of times the Aboriginals here would also from ancient times sometimes mark our own forehead with the hex alpha, you know, because we are Saba also, or Phoenici, right? And artificially in the reconstructed history, they would also call us Hebrew or Jew or Phoenici, and know that that's really not a religion, even though they have misrepresented that.
Mm-hmm.
That's another issue, but know that when you hear those terms. And another thing that we want the people to be aware of so that they're able to find themselves in history, because it will be generally hidden from you. I'll give you some reference for the pedigree of these Asiatics of the West or the Maghreb, how you're hidden by not knowing your real history. So these are some of the attributes, or what they would refer to as names, of the ancient peoples here at North America, Central America, South America, and the islands that they've called us Indians of the West. In order for some of you neophytes to be better able to actually dig through the books to know when they're hiding you, if you don't, why they don't teach you, so that when you read some of the history, you don't know that it's you. All right. So these are some of the applied names of the Asiatic nation. And when you're talking the Asiatic nation, remember the other thing that is not told to the people here is that North America is Northwest Africa, but that's modern. All right. Now contemporary, you're saying America, which is actually a mexum, the first syllable of a mexum, and the last syllable of Africa is put together. That's where you get the word America. All right. Also, you will have they will refer to it as Little Egypt, Tamari, and things like that. But all that applies to the Aboriginal people, does not apply to the hybrid Europeans who conquered us and who used the date of their conquest, 1492, who now falsely call themselves Americans in order to use the sovereignty of the people of the land to conquer other nations. And if you're not aware of that, you know, you may get confused relative to some of the policies of the Jesuit order in their world conquest operations, in the projected misconcept of always saying we did this or we did that when there is no we. It is hybrid Europeans making policies under the USA, which is the Unum Sanctum Alliance. And because the nations of the earth are now starting to actually come together, the Asiatic nations, and particularly a lot of this impetus that's really sparking this new unity is taking place in West Asia. Keep that in mind. West Asia will be misrepresented in reconstructed history as the Middle East. I repeat, West Asia has been told to the people via reconstructed history as Middle East, which is false. Reality, West Asia. However, it is a seed for change on a major scale that now will be affecting the whole areas of Midgard. Now, for those of you who have been misled by the hybrid Europeans in their hegemony operations of education, for which they give degrees and put people in debt, these are some of the true ancient names of these same people who have been scattered into these different brands. Now, these are the original names of these peoples: Canaanites, Hittites, Lemurians, Asiatics, Moabites, Moroccans, Moors, Mauritania, Mohammedans, Saracens, Phoenici, really, they would say Phoenicians, it's Phoenici, Carthaginians, Nubians, Sumerians, Egyptians, Ethiop, Abyssinians. All of these nomenclature belong to these people, the Aboriginal people of the Americas, from the north to the south, and the islands, which have been altered over the millennia and centuries. And keep in mind, this is another reason why a lot of what you say restrictions are put on anyone going into the caves of Kentucky and Tennessee. They're limited in that area, which is called Lower Egypt, and they're limited absolutely from true examination of the Grand Canyon, because you will find articles and artifacts that are older than any of the artifacts that they've showed you in any museum anywhere on the planet. And they don't want you to find that out, because one of the policies of the hybrid hegemony operations is not only to mentally disconnect the people from the land, but also to hide the true, more than ancient, ab antiquo history of the people here at the Maghreb, or the Western Hemisphere. Now, so that you'll also be able to make a separation so that they can't hide themselves in the history and then interject themselves into the history of other nations that they have conquered. These are them. The names referring to the hybrid Europeans also refer to as Germanic nations. 1, Romans, Paleoliths, Albion, Albo, Englishmen, and colonists. So colonist is a general term dealing with their unum sanctum operations of going to and fro the earth, devouring nations. And so when you see the word colonist, that refers mainly to the hybrid Europeans. That term, that political term, doesn't apply to any of the Asiatic Aboriginal peoples. Politically, it's never applied to them. Whenever you hear the term colonist, it's always hybrid Europeans. All right. So for those of you who are doing research, when you find these different attributes, know where they're applied. And this is another reason why they do the prohibitorum and the expurgatorius, in order to cut you off from your illustrious history. And so we're now, they will mostly focus on, here in the Maghreb, they'll focus on tribes, right? Like with my family, most of them, they'll talk about Anayanwea, which we are Anayanwea. Instead of saying Anayanwea, they'll say Cherokee. My grandmom's side, on my father's side, right? Mohawk, right? And Mohican. Whenever you see that M-O, Mohican, Mohawk, Michigan, etc., all those are Moabite Moorish tribes. But once they start, now keep in mind, all of these are extensions of these people here: Canaanites, Moabites, Hittites, Lemurians. And so collectively the Asiatic nation. Now, keep in mind, in order to hide it, they'll present to these Asiatics here, and always present in your mind Africa only, rather than recognizing that we call the whole planet at one time Asia. And so these people here are Asiatics. And we went into Africa. We started naming, and all of the main continents on at Midgard. Pay attention to this, and make note. All your major continent or areas of the Asiatic, Canaanites, Moabites, Nubians, Sumerians, Saracens, all of our continental lands start with the letter A. Keep that in mind. All of them. Now, A, long and short. Now, also to help you, I want to go for the hybrids who are operating here at the Maghreb in all their secret societies, Odd Fellows, Grange, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Kaiklos, Ku Klux Klan, etc., Illuminati, etc. All of them operate on the political agenda of hiding the real history. And so let us go to the Senate for the United States Corporation Company, and let's make reference to Senator Henry Berry in reference to the Aboriginal people here, who they've called Indians West. Because remember, one of the reasons why they promoted the Indian game, because they set up the Bureau of Indian Affairs so that those of us who compromised would split off from other tribes, thinking that we would get a benefit. And this is how they also promote schism. And in this, where you'll also find a lot of Asiatics here who got caught up in that paradigm, who would really attack the real history because it threatens their back pocket benefits from the hybrid Europeans here under so-called Indian benefit to separate themselves from others. All right? It's total fiction. It's sort of like a payoff. That's also what they call schism operations. So here's Senator Henry Berry. This is their policy, established policy of operations and communicating with the Moors who become their property, who are classified as Negro. And he's speaking in the Virginia House of Delegates, 1832. And described the situation as it existed in many parts of the South at this time. And he stated, "We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter into their minds." That's in reference to the Moorish slaves. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on a level with the beasts of the field, and we should be safe. I am not certain that we would do it if we could find out the process, and that on the plea of necessity. And that's just short, that's not complete, but that's to give you the gist of his statement on the House of Delegates. So when you see the reconstructed concepts that the people have of thinking that they're Negroes and Blacks and Indians, that was by design, and is severely protected. This is why all persons in the Senate and the Congress for the United States Corporation Company, including all of the Aboriginal people who they procure, they call them procured operatives, who are assigned as overseers or marchers or so-called Indian leaders and delegates, etc., will hide this kind of information, because if the people find out, that means the procured persons who promote the Indian affair game for schism, or the Black Negro marching civil rights game, same thing, for schism. It would remove the capacity for them to get paid by the ignorant people that they have marching around on their own land. And also, it would deny the payoffs through the Bureau of Indian Affairs for the convenient so-called Black Indian chieftains whose job is to keep the people pacified, and also working in all of the war operations of the hybrids. Whenever they're attacking any other Asiatics around the world, you'll have different chieftains of the so-called Black Indians who would do translations for them. As a matter of fact, in a couple of the wars, they used many of our compromised people to do linguistic translations for them, dealing with the other Asiatic nations, because dialectically, a lot of the different Algonquian tongues here actually have a Phoenician base. And so it wasn't too hard to translate some of what they would call African dialects or Aramaic and African Pusi or Urdu linguistic forms. So that's why they don't want you to know that what they call Tamari or America now is actually Hikupta, or the head of what they would refer to as Egypt. And this is again why the Grand Canyon is closed off. So I wanted to throw that at you so it can give you points of reference. And if you think that these people who have been governing your state don't know this, understand that body of information is referred to as the Great Seal, and is also referred to as the Great Masonic Secret. And for those of you who pay attention to details, this is why every major secret society on the planet, not just in the Western Hemisphere, on the planet, wear the Moorish fez in their ritual chambers. And also, you will always see a different form of it worn whenever they're doing the Mummers Parade at Philadelphia. So I just wanted to throw that at you. Now, I want to also give you another point of knowledge relative to the Negro issue. Now, keep in mind, Negro Vera Arebo deals with the black chimpanzee monkey, or the Pangidae or Anthropopithecus, which is the monkey spirit species dealing with monkeys and gorillas. And this is how the word Negro came into the linguistic form of humans. And also, when you go into the hybriding or the experiments of even cloning and stuff like that, which is ancient, it's not new. And when you, for those of you who know anything about social engineering and Darwin, etc., and the argument presented under the naturalist with the hybrid European evolving from the so-called monkey. It's not really even evolved from the monkey. It's a hybrid, write this down, heterogeneous hybrid. This is why in your older Oxford dictionaries, and this is a more modern Oxford dictionaries, in your older hybrid dictionaries, I'll give you reference so you can do the research. Go in your older it's got to go pre-60. Because remember, one of the things they do, they constantly alter the books so that the people can't find out things, because your older books have a lot of the knowledge. And you'll see at 0.8 in your linear entries in hybrid, you'll see them say, we Englishmen at best are but heterogeneous hybrids. Repeat. Linear entry at about number 8, Oxford Dictionary, pre-1960. At best, we Englishmen are but heterogeneous hybrids. And then you'll have in parentheses troglodyte nigger. Then you go into the troglodyte and it will say caveman, Paleolith, Albion. Now, the areas where they predominantly dealing with their political evolutionary operations would be Angla with an LA, land. So Angla, land. Angla is where you get the term angle, or the land of angles. All right. So the land of angles is now called England. Are we clear? Also, the ancient name before we called it England, or the land of angles, is called Albion. And the hybrids, that was their major place that was set for them.
Because of the weather. And
yes, it's called called Albion, and they were referred to as Albus or Albion, which means Paleolith. And so the Paleolith that they tell you in history with the Neanderthal, etc., the Paleolith, this is why here before the takeover, we used to also refer to them as paleface. That comes from Paleolith.
So they were trying to, from a standpoint of the reconstruction, the history that we've been given is to kind of say that there was a progression from this, when that was actually simultaneous, that we were the Homo sapiens that were more modern, and they were coming up alongside us as some other kind of.
They are hybrids.
Right.
Yes, see the hetero. That's why I'm giving you reference so you can do research. Heterogeneous hybrids.
So in the Bible, would those have been the ones that they referred to as lepers?
Behind the rock.
The lepers.
Yeah. Now the rock. Now the rock would be talked about in modern term as the Caucasus Mountains.
Right.
That's the rock. And this is why some people, not knowing the real history, refer to them as Caucasian. Mm-hmm. That would only actually apply to some, not all, but those who were mainly in the caves.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That would be the heterogeneous hybrids of the Pongidae, heterogeneous experiments. And Mama Callie, when I was listening to you all, and she was mentioning for a lot of the adepts who and in masonry and sociologists in their adept chambers, they'll tell the same story, slightly different, but the general story about Jakub, or in reconstructed history, instead of saying Jakub, they'll say Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
But Jacob is Jakub. Keep that in mind.
And then Jacob's ladder.
Yeah, exactly.
DNA.
Exactly.
Genetics. We are climbing Jacob's ladder.
Exactly. And they're also talking about what? Those 2 points where they cut the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where some of them have been referring to themselves as special.
Mm-hmm.
And where they consider the rest of humanity as being less than, and really, and they consider themselves gods, and they've been doing all this evil stuff on the planet, which is coming to a head right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of this information will be coming out to the people, even though it's ancient knowledge with us. A lot of the hybrids themselves will be telling the truth, because keep in mind, many of them didn't expect to be thrown under the bus. And now that the world is starting to turn against the harlot. Now, so the harlot term is actually given to the head of the hybrid hegemony operations, and sometimes they will be referred to as Babylon. That doesn't belong to them, but the term is given in history so that you would begin to have a concept in cycle when they begin to fall out of power.
Right.
And we're talking about the nations that made agreements with her. They all got the crabs, and they're all wailing because her power is falling. This is what's happening today in the political realm, where the nations are no longer accepting trade with the unum sanctum alliances voucher system, which you know as the US dollar. The safety term that they're using now with this battle that's going on now, with them rejecting the bondage, which is really in the change, wasn't a change. It's really the bond system. All right. So what's happening today around the world with the nations of the earth, in order to save themselves, are breaking the already broken and never honored treaties and contracts with the Paleolith hybrid, whose general mission has been destruction, destruction, destruction. And it's become apparent to the rest of the civilized world that the Paleolith is pathologically incurable. And when you go, for those of you who are addicts.
Now, what can let's qualify that. Even though one of the things I've noticed, and I know you've noticed too, and also Prophet said it would happen, is that a lot of the Paleoliths, as you say, or hybrids, are getting the truth. The ones they too themselves have been lied to.
Yes.
And as they're finding the truth, we're seeing, TikTok videos, YouTube videos, and the like, and they're telling the truth. They're not. Is it because that over the years they've had some kind of amalgamation with us that it's kind of cleansed their
this now? So now if you pay close attention, and you'll get into let me see if it's in here. You'll get into the oath of Caicos. Hold on, let me see if I got it in here. It might be. Keep on talking.
No, I when I was trying to, I guess I'm trying to say that I'm hearing more and more of them,
oh yeah,
speaking these truths, as especially the younger ones.
Yes,
especially the younger ones, and they're saying like, hey, this is what happened, and this is who they are, and they're only kind of even speaking to them as if they're not.
And this is where,
you know what I mean,
and from a reality. So now, and this is back why it's important for our people to kind of know the real politics here and the socialization, because they won't know what they're looking at. All right, and just like Brother Rod will mention about them trying to get a drop of blood, because we're dealing with heritability,
right?
The great lost estate. Now, that's a lesson in its own, but keep that in mind. Knowing that it's over for the harlot, those who have some Moorish blood want to make it into the next cycle. No, now we're looking at not only cosmo knowledge, but cosmo alchemy, cosmo astrology, and cosmo astronomy. So now we're talking about changes of both physical and knowledge about the sun, about the moon, and about other stars. All of these are signs for the people who know the real human history. All of the concepts that we have been presented by the Illuminati operatives of the Jesuit order, who have been God of this world for quite a few centuries, are being dismantled. The concept about everything will change. So everything that we generally know institutionally will be, are collapsing. So some of this information we're sharing so that many of these people who will be totally disheveled have a point of reference, so some of them, one, don't lose their minds.
Yeah.
Some won't be so upset that they have no reference point for stability. Because remember, before things can be fixed, they will come down.
Right.
And for those who have no real knowledge of the sociology or the social engineering, will be trying to preserve that which is being dismantled, thinking it's important to their lives. No different than people now will be trying to save the voucher system that they think is money, thinking that they're losing because they don't know, they don't have another reference. They don't know where we're going from here. So they're going to be trying to save the bench of the Pope. Keep in mind, the bench of the Pope is the bank.
Okay. Yeah.
Quote unquote. The bench of the Pope is the banking system.
Mm-hmm.
The taxing system that Thomas Jefferson talked about. Keep in mind, Thomas Jefferson was minister plenipotentiary when the treaties was being formulated before the ordinance of 1787, and then the adoption of the Constitution from Muslim law that Obama talked about in Cairo, Egypt. You got to look at all of these things because things are being presented to the people, and if they know what they're looking at, they'll see things totally differently. But some people are letting things out, but they're only going to the edge of the table with it so that they're not eliminated physically. Because remember, all truth that comes out now is a threat to the priesthood. So the masses are not from the position of Rex 84. The masses are never to know that the politicians are high priests. Their concept is that the high priests are only in the churches and stuff. No. The politicians are high priests. And particularly any of those who hold the title senator. Some of the Congress people too, but that chamber of the Senate, all high priests, all of them. And most of them in the Congress, men or women, they're Knights of Malta. Now, keep in mind, every praetor is a Knight of Malta.
President.
Huh?
AKA president.
Yeah, that's PR. Yeah, AE. That's who that position really is. Praetor. It's a known fact by all rules of the world. The knowledge is kept from the masses here, who are really the suppressed heirs. Are we clear? And one comment that I heard mentioned when you was talking with Mother Kai.
Or Mama Callie.
Mama Callie, yeah.
Callie,
yeah. No, but also sister in Philly named Kai I was talking to too.
Okay.
Yeah, Mother Kai. Right? They were mentioning about some person who was so-called an Indian chief and stuff, who was talking trash And she also brought up some of the congressional records because she's aware, because they're Mohawk too, if you get the point. And she was asking me, why was this person being so obstinate, or contrary? And I said, remember, a lot of these people are beneficiaries of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And so they have payoffs. So they're also put out there as trolls. So keep that in mind. So they're trying to protect it, because remember, when the hybrid Europeans come down, they come down with them. But their job is also just no different than some of, the so-called Negro leader guys who are paid off to keep the civil rights fiction, 14th Amendment illusion alive. Now, people who don't know the sociology think that that's real or that's constitutional for their benefit, when it was actually designed to keep them in manumission mentality. And of course, you know what manumission is. I know what manumission is. But the people don't know that these people who they think is so-called Black Indian chiefs put in those positions as overseers too. So this is again why, in order to protect the schism operations, you ever notice how the hybrid European give the Indian nomenclature more credibility than the Negro nomenclature? But when you go into congressional records, they're all classified under the same thing. And then also, to keep the fiction going on, they'll start saying Black Indians. Now, also, Dr. G, keep in mind, it's important from a political engineering perspective for them to continue to promote the Negro format. And of course, when you go into the records of human trafficking, you'll see that even the hybrid Europeans were listed under the Negro.
Oh, really?
On the trade box. Yeah, oh, yes. Because that's who the Negro really is.
Ah, that's right. Yeah,
see, because the Negro comes from Negro Yavera Arebo, which is the Paleolith. This is what Charles Darwin is talking about. The issue is that our people need to understand we, the Aboriginal, didn't evolve from Anthropopithecus.
The interesting thing about every picture I've seen of Charles Darwin, he looks like an ape. He looks like a pale ape.
Well,
he's running around, giving this scientific,
and he wasn't.
Opinion.
Remember, a lot of the naturalist information is misrepresented for the sake of the socialization. And so and we're throwing out some of these things so that the people will have a concept of why we are where we are today. And this is the reason why these names or nom de guerre are misrepresented. And this is, again, the etymological problems that we have with our people with reading, and the orthological problems of trying to display to them, connotative meanings that have been generally accepted, but are actually socially interjected, but are in fact not denotative at all. And this is where even when you're dealing with, say, for this expose of intent as an example, right, for 8th graders in Salina, Kansas. And remember, this is 1895, right? And so what are some of the subject matters that they're dealing with in their questions in 8th grade tests? And you'll find that most of these people with college degrees today themselves don't even have this knowledge, if you get the point. So,
and then a lot of people, now it makes sense why back in the day, a lot of people, they went to the 8th grade. Exactly. They went to the 8th grade.
Exactly.
And you'll hear, oh yeah, I went to the 8th grade. So it was commonplace.
So this is 8th grade, right? So what is the first area? Grammar. Right? Then arithmetic. Then
history.
United States history. Then orthography, geography, and health. Right? Mm-hmm. This is 8th grade, right? Then of course your parts of speech, right? Noun, verb, adjective, adverb, pronoun, preposition, conjunction, interjection, article, right? And even when you were expressing to her the classification of Negro and black, this never, but that person had degrees. That was totally ignored, right? And of course, what you're dealing with is grammar. And remember, this is 8th grade, right? And orthography. Then you ask the average person, I almost guarantee you, those of you listening who have so-called high school and college degrees, bachelor's and etc., and this is secondary to this, just put in the chat orthography, what it is. This is 8th grade for 8th graders in 1895.
And don't Google it.
And most of them don't even know what it is.
Yeah, right.
You know, and so you're talking to, or someone's texting you, trying to correct you, telling you that you're misrepresenting, and shamefully you were trying to do what? Make her erudite. Well, she's rejecting erudition because she has an education that she doesn't even know is indoctrination. But again, this is why we're having this conversation. So in point that I'm also making, Dr. J, because I know we're hitting on different things. We're not dealing with a linear conversation. It's because we're trying to get some information out there that the people can do some research, because more and more they're going to be blocking information. Because remember, most of the people don't know that a lot of the subject matters we're talking about are taking place around the world with nations. And it may seem mundane to a lot of people that come on this channel, but we already know that it has much to do with the political changes that are taking place and that are accelerating, and that this information is necessary for our people to apply for themselves, etc., to counter some of the operations of the Khazarians, who are becoming, you might say, a little bit desperate and hiding it somewhat. And this is where a lot of the hybrid Europeans, or the younger ones, are trying to tell the truth, or some of the truth, because they're some of them, because they don't have a negative intent, and then some of them because they're trying to save themselves, because they know what's really coming, and others are trying to maintain status quo even though it's a lost cause, because they know it's a lost cause. It's sort of like you know how some of the even though it's a game, it's theater. How some of the politicians are desperately trying to keep Trump from getting back into office, because they know if he does, a lot of them going to meet the gallows for treason. Even though you already know that we're not arguing necessarily for either side, or of the conscience wigs or the cotton wigs, who they really are, because you already know the masses think they're Republican Party and Democratic Party. You and I know that they're cotton wigs and conscience wigs competing with each other now for lost cause, because they're both being dismantled. And whereas the people here have limited political power to have any what you call realistic effect to some degree, because most of the people here have been compromised for so many generations, and they don't have key knowledge. Therefore, the nations of the earth, or like you see in the back of the Quran when it says this is the uniting of Asia, and it closed out like that. So what do you see right now? Remember what I was telling you when we were out, and I told you look for the gas to go up?
Yes.
Within a week or more. How do you know that? Because the nations of West Asia are sanctioning the oil from the Khazarian USA Unum Sanctum Alliance. So that would include the United States Corporation Company, don't confuse it with the land, Canada, Israel, Germany, and Europe in general. That's the Unum Sanctum Alliance, the USA, headed by the United States Corporation Company, headquartered Fleet Street, England, Davos, Switzerland, operative at North America under the pretext of being a country, which is bankrupt. Thus, they're selling or dumping all of the bondage. They're breaking the chain. So it's the bond system that's at the basis of Wall Street banking. So they will say to the public, this is how they'll present it to the public mainstream. China's attacking the US dollar simply because they won't buy the bonds. If it was money, how can you break something that's the money? Because it isn't. It's just what it is. It's bondage. And they have, after they bonded us, they bonded every nation that did any contract with them. So in order for the nations to save themselves, they have to do what? Dump the US Treasury bonds. So you got to know what those bonds actually are. So that would include all derivatives. Write that down. All derivatives. Remember years ago I said to you over the street, I said, watch Deutsche Bank?
Yes.
You're going to hear a lot more about Deutsche Bank because that's all the dead pledges are held there that are operative here. Where are those dead pledges? In Germany, in Deutsche Bank. The Germanic tribes I just read to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's back to, as we were talking in the car, Dr. G, when you know the real history, you look at all of the political operations totally different than the average person. This is why people, even some people on our side, get upset when we have what you would call an adeptus conversation. Why? Because the adeptus conversation is knowledge that's generally locked in secret societies, in the Masonic lodges, at the Oddfellows, at Kaiklos, Knights of Malta. Why? The heirs were not supposed to have this information. This is again why a lot of people will come on and that'll surprise you and they'll troll and you'll say, well, why is this person not harmonic with raising a nation or with nation? Why they're against this? Now you know why. Because as Rome goes down, they will be exposed. See, right now, many of them still have what you would call emotional power over the people's concepts about themselves. But as the people, and particularly most of the mothers, right, the matriarchy, really begin to comprehend why so much effort is made on getting men and women fighting each other, right? And also why a lot of these so-called Black Indian guys are so contrary to this real history and keep on trying to promote that America's India. Because when Rome comes down, they go with them. You don't have to worry about the brothers coming and getting some of these guys. Their mothers are going to come and get them. Because remember, all of us came from a mother. Now,
some of them came from
well, what it is, and they came from monkeys
and test tubes.
Hey, thank you.
Test tubes, like things, containers.
So, and remember, another reason. One of the movies that they kind of tell you a little bit of the reality of the Charles Darwin truth is Isle of Dr. Moreau.
Island of Dr. Moreau, yeah.
Moreau is French for Moor. So it means the island of the Moors. So now you're going back to also Yakub, the experiments at the Yucatan. And for those of you who do research, now you know why they let those the plateaus in Mexico grow over those cities.
Mhm.
And you'll hear about them, but you never hear them doing what you would call archaeological exploratory work and then exposing it to the public. So I'm just throwing that out there for those of you who've been also to Mexico. And also the password or password phrase of the great quote unquote mixing pot.
Melting.
Those are not circumstantial statements.
Melting pot.
Mixing pot.
Oh, that's a different
They'll say
one.
melting pot. That comes from the same thing, but I'm telling you what the original
Okay.
mixing pot.
Okay.
And then they'll say they'll do it politically. They'll say melting pot. No, the great mixing pot.
So what's the distinction
That deals
between?
with Jacobian experiments at Mexico.
Mhm.
And then when you see after the Second World War, just like many of you who know the real politics know that Adolf Hitler didn't die in Germany. He died in Argentina around 1974 in that area. And what do they call it? Patagonia. So I'm throwing things out there for your research so that you're not following the party line of the hybrids who are desperately trying to maintain power because now the world is on them. So things will be changing very quickly. And for those of you who have a little bit of knowledge about the social engineering are less distracted, I repeat, less distracted and less apt to be confused about what's really happening. Because remember, as soon as you get into what you would call knowledge of the order of the Great Seal, they will start striking. This is why sometimes, and I know it's frustrating for some of you, but some of you know that if we say certain things, they will strike the channel. But we're giving you keys that if you do a little research, you'll be surprised of what's available to you that you never paid attention to.
But there is a need, and I keep asking you this because those of us who do know also want to know how we can sidestep what's the onslaught that's coming, because here we are in this, but not of this.
Mm-hmm.
You see me?
But you need to know how. Now, we need to know how that translates into the civil order. A lot of
But
these
that's
phrases,
important with nationhood.
Yeah.
We're not a nation.
We are, but
we are, but we're so fractured, we don't even know.
That's called schism.
Yeah.
No.
We can't stand up and say, no, we on this side, not that. We're amalgamated.
You need to really get the point. Now, what have we always talked about, Dr. J, with the people? They need to understand and understand when we're saying, and we've done over the years, we've gone over and over. You're talking jurisdiction, not distance. Because the people aren't taught political geography or anthropology. They've been trained in their compressed perspective that foreign means geographical distance only. No, it means jurisdiction. It also means state and state of mind.
Or object. Because I'm thinking about, if splitter goes into my eye,
it's foreign.
That's foreign. Yeah, it doesn't belong there.
A corrupt thought.
It's foreign.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
De facto.
Foreign.
See, color.
Foreign.
See, now, by people not knowing orthology and etymology, which is one again why we even went in this book, just to give a snippet of 8th grade erudition. And also you deal with the alteration into the education system, 1902, the part it played. Then when you go into the conquest of Nefertiti's daughters, right? So most of these people don't know that Scotland in that area is Nefertiti's daughters' territory. So in the 1800s, mid 1800s, when they took over England, Scotland, this is why most of the people don't know that the Picts and the Dubs are Moors.
But they show us the movie.
But our people think it's
Forrest
just a
Whitaker,
movie.
yeah, The Last King of Scotland.
Because that's all right. Now you're talking Nefertiti's bloodline. See, but when they tell you about Nefertiti, right? What do the people keep thinking? They keep thinking Hikuta on the northern coast of Amexem or Africa, right? So their mind doesn't run to the peninsula, does it?
Yeah.
Does it? But what is the real history before socialization? So they don't know that Iberia, you know, again, Dr. G, you know, when they take people that come around the world and people that belong in the lodges, when they take them to that last lodge that George Washington shut down on Broad and Jupiter.
What about?
Right? They take them to the Ionic room. And the Iberia, even so, when the people are looking at Iberia, they're not thinking in their mind Moorish, are they?
I don't think so.
Now, this is back to people not knowing the different attributes and names that belong to them that they think they have no association to. So the advantage of those who are adeptus, they know that our people are hidden in history because they don't know themselves, not because they're actually buried in a hole and branded with a coat of many colors. And so they think that human beings are different colors.
So they don't know that the story of Joseph
is to make them non-descendable at law.
But these stories sometimes are depictions or
allegories
for what's going on. Actuality and with us.
Exactly.
Because like I told you, I for the longest time with all my degrees in, you know, theology, I kept wondering, and at the time I wasn't knowledgeable about not being black. But where do black folks come at? Where we come from? Where do we, you know, or where does America, you know, because it never dawned on me and never taught
yes.
to how to interject. You were just supposed to believe in this stuff.
Now, and then look at here, and here we go again, right? Oxford Dictionary, right? Right? So now let's go to orthology, right? 8th grade principle, 1800s, right? So now here we go, look. Compound word, right? Now, archaic, which means old, right?
Right.
So it's noun, right?
Right.
But it's a compound word.
Yeah, black and
right. More. And also in a small case, right? Black, right?
Right.
Uppercase, more.
Right.
So one who can read know that this adjective is not the noun.
Right.
The noun is here, but it's a compound word. And so it says what? From black, all even case letters, A plus, which means added, more, capital MOOR, noun. Right after that, see, adjective, noun. Adjective, noun.
Right.
Put together.
An adjective,
plus,
noun. Yeah.
Connecting, A, unexplained, which means they're not explaining it to you.
Because they don't know.
No, they know what it's not. They're not explaining it, but they're putting it here. A black African, a very dark-skinned person, right? So they're telling
a very dark-skinned person, you know, a person is, but I see very dark-skinned in so-called Indians. I was in an Indian store, so-called.
All right. So
today,
the people
and some of them are, yeah. So the
people think that the adjective is the identity.
Right.
More is the identity.
It's a description.
Black is the tag, is the adjective attached to it
that they're
to
describing.
hide the history.
Okay.
But it's there. The history of who? The real Africans.
Mm-hmm.
And all, not some, all of the dark-skinned people. Not some, all. Now, under a challenge in sociology, as the people start waking up around the world, right? Now you understand what Duarte was saying in the Philippines?
Mm-hmm.
Now you see, years ago when Bill Clinton was speaking before, I think the United Nations, and he was, and they introduced him. They say, and now the American president, and I think it was Vicente Fox, I think, was president for the United States of Mexico, I think, at that time. And he objected. He says, he is not the American president. I'm also the American president. America's a continent. We have a lot of Americans here. He's the president of the American Corporation, the United States of America. And you know how much they didn't blow that up in the mainstream news? But that was said right on the floor of the United Nations when they introduced Bill Clinton as, quote unquote, the American president, because he ain't American. And see, more and more, the Americans, and this is where you have Organization of American States.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
This is the real Americans, and you, in order to have a voice. And they're always suppressing it. Why? Because they've been falsely promoting their private corporation as a country, and they've been getting that off. That's why Duarte said what he said relative to Philippines. He says, they call us Philippines, but we're really Moors. And so these things have to be corrected. Why? The nomenclature or the nom de guerre were put in place, known as the brand system, by the hybrid Europeans who conquered the Western Hemisphere to bring the people under what is known as wardship tenures. Write that down, you all. WARD SHIP tenures. That's a military operation. People are held to wardship. And this is where the Negro and black tag comes in, and color tag comes in, which are schism operations, military operations, to create schism, or what you call divide and conquer among the true Americans. These is where these terms have taken root in the social structure. And this is one of the major arguments that Noble Drew made when they spoke to the Queen of England relative to their obligation to the Constitution and treaties. And that these were all what? Brands, and is not the names of these people. And so even with nationalization that he set up for the restoration of the heirs of the estate, which is again why the Secretary of State for the United States Corporation was set out, although he tried to interfere, tried to interject himself. He was set out when they had that meeting in Havana, Cuba, with Drew Ali, dealing with the restoration of the estate or the return of the estate. And this is back to even why a lot of these so-called Indian tribal leader guys resist telling the people the truth about that. A lot of this information was supposed to be presented to these people under the rights of indigenous people, and also the advent of decolonization with the U.S. corporation being one or like number one on the list of hybrid Europeans who by international law were supposed to start telling our people this history, because they were supposed to start decolonizing. So look up decolonization, and it was supposed to be really instituted in around 1960. And then figure out why your so-called Indian tribal guys don't want this information out and get mad when we start telling the people the truth about this history. This is why they're against nation building. Why? Because this ain't the Indian nation. It's the Asiatic nation. Would you like to add to that, Dr. J?
No.
And we ain't
I was
Negro,
having a
black,
block party.
and we ain't Negro, black, or color.
Yeah.
And once you know the real socialization and the things that were done, because a lot of stuff is documented. You know, you'll start recognizing the different agendas that people have and why they have those agendas. Because keep in mind, one of the no different than like you see the bones that they use in the symbol for the skull and bones, right? You see the cross bones with the skull. So that's Geronimo's bones and skull. And what was one of the issues with Geronimo? Telling the different Moorish tribes, right, to lay down their arms and not to fight the hybrid Europeans. And what they do? When he got enough of them to take a passive position, they threw him in jail. And when he died, they used his bones for the symbol and skull and bones. And what else did they do with the skull and bones? With Lyndon Baines Johnson, the so-called Negro marching civil rights leader guys, they made the 501c3 agreement particularly for them, although it applied in general under the guise of no tax on behalf of Jesus to promote the Constantine order under the guise of loving Jesus, etc. And this is that 501c3 agreement that so-called Negro preacher guys, marching guys have been promoted to trick our people into agreeing to the 14th Amendment US stock personage agreement of manumission, thinking it made them US citizens. This is why one of the greatest ones, respected ones among them, says, "Look like I brought my people into a burning house." When he started recognizing that he'd been played. But remember, he was 33-degree Mason, so it ain't like he didn't have a Moorish fez, because he did, right along with the rest of them guys, including most of them who were really FBI agents. You start looking up FBI agents and look at all these so-called black marching leader guys, and you'll find most of them were FBI and CIA agents, then and now. And that includes most of your so-called Negro Indian affairs kickback payoff guys playing games, trying to block nation building under the pretext that they like their people, and then trying to impress people by wearing feathers that belong to us.
I tell you.
So I'm giving you keys because you do the research, and remember, a lot of the hybrid Europeans are telling you now, so you don't have to believe me.
That's true.
Because they're trying to get a drop of blood. This is why as soon as some of us get 2 or 3 more voucher notes, you see them throwing their women at us, whether they're rappers or singers or NBA players. What do? They try to kill the image of our women.
That's right.
And then start pushing their women in front of the brothers so they can get a drop of blood. And then as soon as they get their hands on, quote unquote, the bag,
they take it and run.
Yeah, you got that right.
Run with it.
So recognize the play and understand the social engineering politics. This is why Drew Ali said we do not seek to marry into the pale-skinned nations of the earth. Why? They're after your birthright.
Stuff.
Oh, and guess what? They ain't playing. And I also, again, want to remind you all of their obligations. And we're talking about the established law of the land, the Code of Laws of the United States of America of a general and permanent character. And keep in mind, this is law, consolidated, codified, set forth, and published. 35, and this is after Franklin Delano Roosevelt started using the birth certificates to back their corporation, which went bankrupt again. And so we're dealing with the certification in the Library of Congress with the certificates of the Order of the Great Seal. And its registration numbers of AA222141 Class A. And many of you who are in scholarship already have this information, but I'm sharing this tonight for the neophytes who may be deceived by those who are playing the Negro Black Codes games with them and who have been falsely promoting it as identity to counter that misinformation. This Code of Laws of the United States of America of a general and permanent character, in force January 3rd, 1935, and that's from the 1934 edition. And it's Title 22, Chapter 2, Section 141. So the certificate registration would be AA222141. And so that deals with consular courts. Now, because I had a few people ask me relative to what I often mentioned with Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1954, suspending jurisdiction at Morocco and suspending consular courts. And so remember that correlates with the promotion of the 14th Amendment artificial person and with the civil rights marching paradigm of psychosis under the manumission operations to rebury the heirs of the estate. Now, and keep in mind, they did as much as they could to try to keep this information from the heirs. And this is another reason why we did this, book for the people years ago, late 80s, early 90s, to make them aware of this, the code of laws that they're all obligated to. And this is also to counter the compromised ones among ourselves who keep our people in the Negro Acts and under the Black Codes. So, Title 22, Foreign Relations and Intercourse. And for those of you who are in scholarship, most of you already have this. But again, like I say, this is for the neophytes that are on the show now. That's consular courts. Section 141, judicial authority generally. And that's to carry into full effect the provisions of the treaties of the United States with certain foreign countries. So the 141 section carries into effect the provisions of the treaties of the United States with certain foreign countries. So keep in mind the concept of geographical distance is how people keep thinking, but we're talking political alliances and jurisdiction, obligations in government. Now, and so when you're looking at this, look at Article 3, Section 1, Section 2 of the Constitution for the United States to recognize the international forum and platform for the issues of the Aboriginal people here. So it deals with the ministers and consuls, that's CONSULX, of the United States in China, in Siam, in Turkey. You'll say Turkey, it's Turkey is what it really is. Morocco, Muscat, Abyssinia, Persia, and the territories, pay attention to this, the territories formerly a part of the former Ottoman Empire, including Egypt. That's very key relative to jurisdiction, Dr. G.
Okay.
All right. And we're talking about how do our people get out from under?
Yeah.
You get back to the law. All right. Now listen. Duly appointed to reside therein shall, in addition to other powers and duties imposed upon them, respectively, by the provisions of such treaties, respectively, be invested with the judicial authority described in this chapter, which shall appertain to the office of minister and consul, and be a part of the duties belonging thereto, wherein and so far as the same is allowed by treaty and in accordance with the usages of the countries in their intercourse with the Franks or other foreign Christian nations. And then it gives you your law codes so that you can understand their political jurisdictions, not distance. Once you understand that, you understand the existing obligations of law that all of these people, the senators and the congressmen, now when you read this, you understand Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States. You understand Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution for the United States. You understand Article 3, Section 1, 2, and 3 in its entirety. You understand Article 1, Section 10. And you'll understand again why over the years we've insisted on you having a comprehension. Then I'll add or close this presentment with your knowledge of their obligation constitutionally, Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States of America. All debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges of every state to the contrary, the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or the laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. That is their obligation. Now, when you mentioned, and we talked about it earlier, how do we get out from under? How can, like people keep saying we're in it, but not of it.
Right.
I'm showing you the law that backs that up. But I'm also showing you, as I've talked over the years, Dr. G, how it's right before the people's faces, but it's not being taught.
Right.
But as you can understand, with the fictions of the corporate operatives for all these years having pretended to the people that they were the country, why the confusion existed.
Yeah.
And so mentally, the people mentally are disconnected from their inherited land. Mentally, not actually.
Right.
Therefore, the black codes were necessary to mentally, and the Negro Act and the Buck Act, all of these were necessary politically as engineering tools to mentally disconnect the heirs from the land.
Well,
so
I was grabbing this while I
yes,
was over there. It's a book I picked up a few weeks ago called it's can't even tell you who it's by. I'm trying to tear this off. Anyway, it's called Blood and Treasure. If you can see it, I can turn it sideways. And it says Daniel Boone and the fight for America's first frontier. And what this book is, it talks about it says the explosive true saga of the legendary figure Daniel Boone and the bloody struggle for America's frontier. It's by Bob Drury and Tom Clavitt, and it talks about, and it's a section here, look, about the so-called Indian Army and how they were working to try to get the tribal leaders on their side because they was fighting like hell and they weren't going to make it, meaning the colonists. This book talks about the true what happened, not the glamorized, glamorous,
the made up cowboy and Indian fiction that they promoted.
Blood and Treasure. And I was able to get this 30 notebook for $4.99 at Ollie's because they have closeouts there. But they had apparently at Target, but I only paid 5 notes for it. But this talks about the fact that this gets into the fact that we were whipping their behind until they had to get leaders so-called on their side.
And that's the schism operations that they use to this very day.
Yeah.
Now the conference that they just had in Dubai, they had that fight and they were talking about Dubai and they made all that stuff, right? But they ain't telling people about the conference they just had. And this is where the leaders of West Asia are coming together to undo the operative power of the hegemony in West Asia. Now, this is the reality. The control narrative would be the problems they're having in the Middle East. That's the control narrative. The real truth, the hegemony dissolution that has been operative in this last century at West Asia, meaning that the schism operations that they had instituted that have been operating for this last century, the Asiatics are coming together. You're seeing on the planet the uniting of Asia.
Yeah.
The conversation we're having with our people now is to make you aware that everybody's being put in the position of making clear your alliances, your real alliances, not your emotional, mainstream misguidance alliance, your real alliance. Remember how Drew Ali said your brother's going to come from the east to help you?
Yeah.
You need to recognize what's happening. So, like when you talk about Dr. G, the jurisdictional issue, how do we get out from under? You're talking about jurisdiction. What is the political action to counter what Ulysses Grant did after they got rid of Abraham Lincoln? What did Ulysses Grant do relative to the Naturalization Act? If any of you listening, because I know you got scholars out there, what did Ulysses Grant do after they got rid of Lincoln relative to the Naturalization Act 1870? Now remember this class for the children is 1895. The establishment of the General Education Board 1902. What did Ulysses Grant do that affect the politics, the social engineering politics here at North America in 1870 with the Naturalization Act? For those of you who are in the chat, some of you who got some knowledge, drop a little line and answer that question. Also, in relationship to their obligation, you want to look at chapter 22, 142, 143, Dr. G.
Chapter 22,
Mhm.
Title 22, Chapter 2, Section 143, General Jurisdiction in civil cases.
Mhm.
Such officers are also invested with all the judicial authority necessary to execute the provisions of such treaties, respectively in regard to civil rights, whether of property or person.
Read that part again so you will understand where the civil rights that our people have been trained to march under is not what the law is.
Okay.
And I wanted to bring this to your attention because I'm also completing our conversation that we were having because you brought it up a couple of times.
Mhm.
So I want to reminding you and reminding the listeners the proper jurisdiction that's there but covered up.
Right.
And also why the resistance that you've been seeing with some of the people relative to this.
Mhm.
Does it say family court?
No, ministers and consuls.
Does it say civil rights court?
No,
What does it say?
ministers and consuls.
And what is that? Article 3, Section 2.
Mhm.
Now, read that. So now we're talking to jurisdiction, aren't we?
General
General, aren't
general
we?
jurisdiction in criminal cases.
So we're dealing with what?
Crime.
No, criminal,
Oh, that's criminal. Down here.
142,
Yeah, and civil.
143, civil.
Right.
So both of those, both that, anything criminal with our people is supposed to be held in that court. Anything civil, that court. And the so-called civil rights, that court. How come the people don't know this, Dr. G? Is it not that it's there? Isn't it there?
I mean, it's here, but
Oh,
but not everybody has it in their
no,
fingertips.
hold on. So that what? Hold on. I want to remind you again, because I'm answering your question, but it's also a question that many people ask in some of their posts in the chat. So that's what?
The Code of the Laws of the United States of America of a general and permanent character.
What's this?
Permanent.
What's this?
General.
What's this?
Permanent.
What's that?
Journal.
Does that not cover everything?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
All right. And so what does it say here?
Consular courts. Foreign Relations and Intercourse, page 954.
So that's
Yeah.
all right. So it's to do what?
Judicial authority generally to carry into full effect the provisions of the treaties of the United States with certain foreign countries.
So they're dealing with jurisdiction. All right.
Right.
So again.
And says they're foreign to us.
Exactly. Now see politically why it was necessary for them to promote the civil rights 14th Amendment concept of artificial persons, which is why all of the so-called Negro leaders always made these words, Negroes and colored people, why they promoted those terms. To do what? To subvert this. Go ahead. Now read it again. I'm putting things in perspective, Dr. G.
Okay. Title 22, Chapter 2, Section 143, General Jurisdiction in Civil Cases. Such officers are also invested with all the judicial authority necessary to execute the provisions of such treaties, respectively, in regard to civil rights, whether of property or person, and they shall entertain jurisdiction in matters of contract at the port where or nearest to which it has or it was to be executed, and in all other matters. At excuse me, where it was to be, and in all other matters at the port where or nearest to which the damage complained of was sustained, provided such port be one of the ports at which the United States are represented by consuls. Such jurisdictions shall embrace all controversies.
Oh, did it say some?
All controversies between citizens of the United States or others provided by such treaties.
Now, keep that in mind, Dr. G, and look at the perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, see concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
The concepts proper, not on opinion, on law, that is the supreme law of the land. But why is it that the masses and general aren't aware of this? Now, put that in perspective, and then put that into perspective with the Secretary of State, right? With roots, right? So here it is, citizenship of the United States. And those of you who are writing about Ulysses Grant and 1870, the Naturalization Act, now put that in perspective with both this and this, Dr. G. Now read this and put that in perspective, and then analyze the social engineering politics that is going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Currently in these last decades, including all these marching guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also the person with all these degrees that's trying to tell you that our people are Negroes. Put that in perspective. Go ahead. Read it and then critique it.
Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. 459, Chapter 5, Temporary Provisions. Morocco, Mr. Philip Chargé d'Affaires to Mr. Root, Secretary of State, August 3, 1906. American Legation, Tangier, August 3, 1906. Sir, there are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats the subject of citizenship. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines, I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. One, citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. And 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. It was established by the Convention of Madrid, concluded July 3rd, 1880.
Now, if you know what Ulysses Grant did with the Naturalization Act, 1870, then you also know Horace Greeley and the issue that took place at Philadelphia with the Convention 1854 with the Whigamores. Then you have a knowledge of the reality of the exotic map that all politicians have, but the masses don't have, and the schools don't have. And your concepts are more correct.
Right.
Now, collectively, Dr. G, when the people are availed this information,
Mexico is way up there, past New York.
Of course. And of course, here we go, right? So where do you see Nubia? Lower Egypt. What is Lower Egypt? Kentucky and Tennessee.
Well, I'll be doing.
I'm
I domicile in Nassau, y'all.
So I'm saying to you how when the masses don't have this information, right? You see why it's important for them to put in front of our people the Indian affairs concepts to distract you from reality. And they give it an air of legitimacy, but it is their creation. Did the indigenous people set up the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or did Calhoun set that up? Calhoun set that up.
Yeah. And why
Hybrid Europeans to claim jurisdiction. See, because once you agree to their corporate subdivision, you're part of it, if you get the point. Now, so you're talking political jurisdiction, aren't you? So what is, back to the point, as our conversation, and you said, how do we get out from under? We're not going any place, actually, because we're home, Dorothy,
right.
Wizard of Oz. But we keep seeking to go somewhere with the matriarchy. That's why they use Dorothy, a female. Because you're home. You lost your mind. You bumped your head. You know how the movie...
See that book right there? We need to awaken in the dream.
Yes. And you know how they say, Dorothy, you're home. You just bumped your head. And then you see them doing at the lodge where George Washington closed after the Mummers Parade. They do the ritual of what they call high ram a biff. And what do they do? Strike him in the head and bury him in the dark north. Who is High Ram a biff? The great architect, who they thought they stole all the architecture and knowledge from, and took over the North Gate and buried him in the north. And this is why you have that cornerstone in the grave pit at the north tower of the parapet at City Hall, which was a battleground. And then they put Billy Penn 23.5 degrees directed to the lodge at the parapet at Philadelphia. All these things are symbolic. You see? Once and what I'm saying again, and we talk about this all the time, Dr. G. In a few meetings and a few conversations, you can't make people know. You can give them keys, and they have to use their intelligence to do what? To come out of the grave of ignorance, out of darkness into light.
Well, now I know what it means in the Bible to say, "Come out from among her."
Exactly, it's jurisdiction.
Be separate.
It's jurisdiction. So even when you read this, right, Dr. G, right, it said what? What is saying there? It said Morocco, didn't it?
Yes.
But the law is what? Expatriation of the United States. So now people don't know that the United States is operating at Morocco.
Right.
But in the mind, the people think that the United States is operating at India. Because that's the narrative that they told you. You see the point? So in order to misdirect the people's energy, seeking sovereign restoration, Calhoun created the Bureau of Indian Affairs and started promoting the Indian fiction. Notice that now, do the research. All of the casinos that the hybrid Europeans under the Bureau of Indian Affairs had some of the Seminites build, and soon as they started making finance, what did the hybrid Europeans do with all them casinos? Took them over, didn't they? Didn't they?
Yeah. Come back.
But the concept was that they would have a sovereign right over their land and state, right? Same thing they did with Geronimo, didn't they? They got played. Now, the point that I'm making is this, Dr. J. What's happening in the world? It's quite clear that the Moors here have been so infiltrated and compromised and operative under schism that is necessary for the Asiatics of the world to initiate on a serious operation the dissolution of the bondage system that our people thought was a chain. And it's a chain of events, a chain of chronology, a chain of dissolution of the law, a dissolution of the law and the introduction of the Negro Acts with the legal civil rights operations when they were supposed to be what? Heard in consular court, weren't they? Both criminal and civil. Dealing with persons and property, wasn't it? And it's not was, that's the law.
Yes, it says.
So that means all of these people, right? So-called, which is saying so-called, relative to these treaties, etc., with the indigenous people, were supposed to be heard under consular court, aren't they? Not with people sitting around talking emotionally with their little clubs, trying to sell our people UCCs, is it? Is it? Or was it? That's the jurisdiction. Is that not the established law, Dr. G?
That's what it says there.
Why is it not known?
I don't know. Tell me.
You already know. It's called compromise. It's called schism. It's called divide and conquer. And the point that I'm making to you, because I mean, we talk all the time, Dr. G, right? I'm just reminding you what we often do over and over again. Even when we're having some of these conversations, what I have said to you, I've already told them what they need to know.
Yep.
I've done it years ago. They're not, some are listening,
I don't think people,
some are not. They're not absorbing because they don't have reference points.
Years ago, people did not see the urgency, the they heard you, but they some of them, made you be like the guy that was saying the sky is falling, and they heard it, but they didn't believe it.
Exactly.
And now those who have lived to this point in life and know what they heard you saying years ago, I've heard you saying things for at least the last 12 years, those folks now are either like, damn, I should have,
they're trying to do a crash course.
Right, could have prepared.
And the deal of it is we don't have the time because we're already in the storm.
But it's always, it's still in order for us to come together and unify. That's not being unified is one of the biggest hindrances to moving away from this.
Now, why the hindrance? And this is what I'm saying to you. So I'm slowing down and making point. The lack of knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the people leaning on their emotional responses based on common sense, right? Things that make common sense, right? And frustration statements because they're being economically and socially attacked, right? Right? Mm-hmm. And they're looking to have meetings to bring unity formulas to bear. Meaning they're trying to subconsciously invent what's already there, thinking it doesn't exist, thinking that we need to come together and make up platforms and then trying to convince people to agree to be a part of the platform to fix an obvious injury, right? When the platform already exists, always did. It had not been spoken. Now, as you read this, right, and also the letter, you can see why Secretary Roots did not want to make a public report on this matter with the expatriation. Why? And what does he say? How did these Moors lose their nationality? With the naturalization. Now you understand Ulysses Grant?
No.
Ulysses Grant became praetor after they got rid of Lincoln, and he immediately altered the Naturalization Act. 1870. You got to put things. See, once you put things in perspective and timeline, you understand political motive. They created an artificial jurisdiction. And also what occurred during that period with Horace Greeley. The hybrid Europeans, 1854, or 5 years before, or 5 or 6 years before, they agreed to call themselves the White Party, and they took on the title white. So now we're going to what? Perspective, Dr. G, and then recognition. Why the tools, right? Why is it that we consistently send people to key information? Because once you have the key information, the perspective becomes corrected. So what did he do? This is what Ulysses Grant did. Right?
Creole asked about the book. I just typed it in there.
I'm having. Yeah.
No, they wanted the book title.
I'm having you read it because I'm answering our conversation. So the Naturalization Act, right? So now, if you know what Ulysses Grant did after they got rid of Lincoln, because remember, he's praetor after Lincoln. Then you look at the Whiggamore Party split at Philadelphia, 1854. So now read this in entirely and then interpret it, Dr. G.
Free white persons referred to in Naturalization Act as amended by Act July 14th, 1870 has meaning naturally given to it when first used in 1 statute 103 C3, meaning all persons belonging to the European races then commonly counted as white and their descendants, including such descendants in other countries to which they have emigrated. It includes all European Jews, more or less intermixed with peoples of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. It includes Magyars, Lapps, and Finns, and the Basque and the Albanians. It includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, the mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and North African inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. And it does not mean Caucasian race.
Repeat.
It does not mean Caucasian race.
Repeat.
It does not mean Caucasian race,
Come on.
Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia, a Syrian or of Asiatic birth and descent will not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person.
And then it gives you multiple law cases for reference.
Yeah.
Now, you know it's a status. I know it's a status. We know that stuff started with the Naturalization Act. We know what Ulysses Grant did. We know what happened 6 years before this. Because remember, 6 years before, before this, Ulysses Grant became praetor for the corporation after they killed Lincoln. And now you understand the manumission operations, and you understand the alterations of them, and you understand the establishment of the civil rights BS, and you understand with the Horace Greeley and then the White Party, which becomes the Republican Party, which is the conscience Whigs, etc., and the hybrid Europeans starting to claim to be white people, but it doesn't mean them, does it?
No.
Does it?
No.
Does it?
No.
Who's been promoting that crap? Those who don't know the history and the social engineering. Now, understanding this, understanding the issue with Horace Greeley, understanding the Whiggamore Party meeting 1854 Philadelphia, understanding Ulysses Grant after they got rid of Lincoln, understanding the Naturalization Act, understanding the Consular Court issues, understanding Act of July 1, 1870, etc., understanding that all of these areas, many of these areas are territories formerly a part of the former Ottoman Empire, including Egypt. So the Ottoman Empire and Egypt, now you understand title, you understand chapter 46.
So is this the Egypt that they tell us, or the Egypt
You're here.
The here Egypt.
Now you understand the issue with the Grand Canyon and why so much suppression, and it's territories, not just territory.
Right.
And they are obligated to this. And so all the treaties come under this. All the treaties. Duh. Meaning that once you know the law, Dr. G, and the real history, you know, and logically it takes study, right? Mm-hmm. And as you already know, brother has been working very hard with his civics class.
Yeah, brother. Yes, brother.
Yes. And the value of it, meaning that a conversation doesn't do it if people aren't involved.
Right.
And what I'm presenting to you, because really we're having our conversation that we're having anyway, mm-hmm. right? But what I'm simply doing is taking you to pieces of documented information to both answer your question in our conversation, which also qualifies you to answer the questions of people that might come on the chat who still don't get it conceptually because they have not been studying. It doesn't mean they didn't have materials, right? Mm-hmm. But remember, most of the people are scattered by their concepts because they're mostly exposed to mainstream news sources. And most of them don't get jurisprudence, right? And then others don't know that law and history goes together. Why? Because their quote unquote minds have been controlled by the indoctrination system of the Rockefellers and the Gates through the General Education Board with their degrees. Their degrees for hoop jumping. So I wanted you to read it rather than me read it, and you make the interpretation of the obvious. And so when we're talking about over the years, in personam jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction in all matters of law and status, why over the decades, you've always saw me go to that. Why do I do that redundantly? Because I know, Dr. G, if we don't fix that, all of the other problems, which are symptoms that our people think is the subject matter, cannot be solved. They're reflections of truth reversed. But again, and on the other hand, I'm re-emphasizing to you why even with the different literatures that I've written, I always try my best to keep it simple. Not big, thick, though it can be made like that. I try to unbury it, dealing with primal source, or what you call root source, root principle. If you fix root principle, the rest of the stuff will fall in place. What has happened with people? They get scattered with emotional presentments on distracted, controlled narratives. And that's called indoctrination. But they don't know that because they've been told it's education. And again, because you have insight by nature, that's the way you are. Well, I told you before, don't get rid of the book. Number one. Yeah. Number two, you already have the spirit for it. I recognized that you were missing certain keys. I came to give you certain keys to simply help complete the package. Because you came here on assignment anyway. But I recognize that you have some doubts about yourself in certain areas, right? Even though you weren't saying it. I saw that. And so therefore you weren't reaching your full power. And the real deal, you're a spell breaker, right? You're a spell breaker. And so I'm just giving you some more tools so that you can do it confidently and firmly, even though you were doing it anyway. But you know, it's sort of like what gives the dark priesthood so much power is that they've convinced people to doubt their own. They have you believing in things outside yourself.
Absolutely.
Now, and I'm saying this again, Dr. J. So ask that question again, that our conversation was along the lines before we came up. And then I say to you, answer your own question. And it becomes obvious a lot of the work we have to do. And as a matter of fact, when you look at that, Dr. G, right, it even gives you a clearer understanding of Act 1 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws that Drew Ali gave to the adepts. He said they're put in power to make law, right?
Mm-hmm.
And enforce law, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says if that's a qualification, right?
Mm-hmm.
They live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. That means a principle, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is known by all the members of the Moorish Temple of Science. Later, the Moorish Science Temple of America. That means they were supposed to know this, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So they were put in power to enforce this, weren't they? That's a political jurisdiction, isn't it? Of government, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now you understand why some of them start saying that Drew Ali didn't teach civics when absolutely it's clear that it's civics.
Yeah,
that means they had a different agenda, didn't it? Didn't they?
Yeah, but maybe
no. We're talking about what are we doing in another way. This is what we're doing in another way. We're forcing persons who support misprision of treason to expose themselves by trying to counter us, by trolling. However, while to some degree they've been somewhat successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what did it tell you in the Naturalization Act? It talked about what? South Russia, didn't it? Right?
Right.
So who's in BRICS now?
China, Turkey.
What's Persia? Persia is Iran. So all of this stuff of the ancient is coming back together, ain't it? It's called BRICS. So when you know, you see it. People who don't know don't see it, even though it's in their faces. And many of them be working, what? To maintain their own servitude, not knowing who friend and enemy is, because they don't know themselves. The job of the dark priesthood is to keep them in the dark and out of the light. Now you understand why I read that issue from the senator?
Mm-hmm.
Keeping them from the light.
Which is definitely an agenda that they've been carrying throughout the.
So once you know that
centuries.
They're operating on an agenda, you don't sit around wasting your time thinking that you need to make them understand that we're somebody like they don't know. We're the problem. We're the ones that don't know. So what do we have to do? Remove the illusions of the world and bring them to reality, even though it's uncomfortable for them. Because they got to let Rome go. And they don't, because they're depending on Rome. They think they got money. They don't have money. And they're striving for the evil vouchers, thinking it's money. And it's the root of all the evils that they're suffering from. Although we're forced to use the vouchers, we know that the vouchers are tied to the Sister QB, don't we? So it's not that we don't use the vouchers, we know what they are, don't we?
Right.
And we don't build our world around them. We learn to use their tools against them. And since many of the people here are asleep, others are formerly of the territories, formerly a part of the former Ottoman Empire. Do you know what's happening right now in Palestine? Do you know what's happening with Erdogan in Turkey? With that speech they made in that meeting the other day? That's part of the Ottoman Empire. If our people know their history, that the mental change that they make in their mind will project energy into the atmosphere, and it's waiting on us. We're one of the keys to the hub of the wheel of change in the cycle. What makes us ineffective? Our consciousness or lack thereof. Anyway.
Well, you know what? This has been somebody just asked me to put our Cash App in the chat. I mean, so they could donate, and that we are going over almost a half hour, and which leads us to the fact that we were going to talk about that, right?
Yes.
So I just put our Cash App in there, but as we prepare to leave, we did want to solicit your support. You know, we have our we were trying to get our 40 members, at least 40 members of the to be a part of our legacy group.
Oh yes, for the legacy.
And we have
group.
12, and I think each one of you, I think it's like 12 of you at this point.
Yes.
But we still have things that we have to do, and we're trying to maintain now 2 properties.
Yes.
And so forth. So for those of you who cannot do the 40 a month,
until transition is made,
right, until transition, we are asking you to become a sustaining supporter with a minimum monthly donation of 9 Federal Reserve notes a month. It's a good number.
Yeah, vouchers. Yeah.
The vouchers, divine 9.
Because remember, they're tied to the Sister QB Trust.
Right. So
in other words, this is what's happening. So people need to understand. We need the support of you for the buildings while transition is being made on the world stage with the U.S. Treasury bonds, which are part of the things that are holding us economically back.
right.
Are we clear? So the principles of all of us are coming to what you call a restoration of a state. While we're in transition, we're forced to use the Federal Reserve notes, which are really vouchers to the Sister QB Trust. So on that point, we're asking your support and help to become members while this transition is being made, so that we can maintain what we've established here on behalf of the House of Reawakening Minds, to help the people so we can maintain these channels, etc.
Right. We have the channel that we have. Y'all, some of y'all remember this. About this time last year, we were trying to get that channel, and it was. I appreciate you all. 2508 to get that channel for a year. It was basically it was 50. It was 5,016, but we were able to get in for half price. But that's annual. So in about I think the 6th,
around the 8th.
the 6th of December, 2508 is due again. And you know, if we had a regular support,
which we don't have,
we have sporadic support, except for the ones of you who have committed to the.
Yeah, and as a reminder, because a lot of people don't know this, our channel is not monetized.
Now we don't get anything, like, you know, the people we don't get anything. We don't get anything from YouTube, or we don't, if they put commercials on them, I don't know if they do, but we don't
They
get
do.
we don't
They
get
do.
we get nothing, you know.
Mm.
So we maintain everything we do from your generosity, but we realize times are hard. Not everybody could do the 40, but if you go to our website, and we hope that every one of you is a member of the website, but if you go to the website, houseofreawakeningminds.com, I believe there's a even if you click on the legacy donation, where it says 40, or to become a legacy member, you could do your $9 donation there. Just make it reoccurring, and $9 or more, whatever you want to do, and it will come out every month on the same date. But we're not, wouldn't ask you. Look, he's busy. We wouldn't ask you if it wasn't.
Yeah, we honestly need your support.
We honestly need your support. We're running two houses now. We got still trying to get the house
with very little help,
and we need your support. So please, and thank you for I think it was Colin Bay who asked me to put the Cash App in the chat. Thank you for asking. Thank you for all of those of you who do give, and you know who you are, and we know who you are. I just can't call everyone's name, but I know who you are. We appreciate.
But you can put a star up if you want honorable mention.
Right. So
those who go into chat, you can even set up super chat for those who want honorable mention.
Well,
to let that's if it's desired by you.
Well, okay. We started to list the names of those who are appellations of those who have signed up to be our legacy group members, but we can also, I would even list anybody else, as long as it's a recurring donation. If it's $1, but like I said, 9 is a good, so 9 is we thought 9 was a good number. I want to thank my brother Yakuba Jerome L, who actually suggested 9. 9, he said, or some derivative of it, 9 or 18 or whatever, but 9, so the divine, what is it called? The divine something of the number 9.
Yeah.
But please, if you can find it in your heart, and to know that we're not trying to pay anybody's salaries or anything. I'm self-sustaining. Grand Sheik is self-sustaining. But we're trying to keep, the two houses now, the new one and the House of Reawakening Minds. We just had an issue with our heater.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with our thermostat, and it was like, the weather's getting cold and so forth. But things are coming up. We have to do what we have to do.
Maintenance.
But
while transition is being made.
I don't know. Somebody said he's mentioned super chat. I don't know anything about how to do super chat, but we have our PayPal and our Cash App. So you see it up here.
Well, basically, super chat is like basically when you have people when you're like you're going on your chat, and super chat is where you thank them and then you give their appellation.
Okay, I'm gonna put this up here too, because I remember putting this up before. If you could see this was a somebody who made a fake account with my name on it, and to divert, but and he put a picture, our little logo of like the street sign. That is not us. Both our channel comes up, our page comes up with a picture of me on there, and it'll say Naila Gilliam, not whatever they have under here. This is not me. I don't know who this individual is, but shame on you for taking our whatever. And at the top I have the correct, making sure, because sometimes when you start to put stuff in, and sometimes you all want to put in reawakening. It's not reawakening, it's reawaken. It's $ reawaken. REAWA, what's it? KEN, REAWAKEN, not ING. And so somebody's made one with that too, and that's not us. And you should see my picture, my face on there too. So I just want to bring that back up because there were quite a few. I had to complained to Cash App, but I don't know whether they ever took it down. That somebody was taking, and I know they were trying to imitate us because that's House of Reawakening Minds logo, right? And that's my name on there, but that's not us. All right, so just wanted to do that, and we will be back on the first Friday. I will be, back on a Tuesday, I guess, doing something. I don't have a guest lined up. I don't have a guest lined up. So if I don't have a guest lined up for Tuesday, I won't be on, y'all. It's just I'd rather not come and talk to you about nothing. But but I have some, some things in the works.
I was, as a matter of fact, Cousin Troop called me today too. I didn't have too much time to talk to him, because I was coming down here. But I might, if it's within your venue, I'll get him to hook up, because I've been wanting to get him on because he had a lot of information to share, some update, because I know you're busy too.
Right.
But if you need the slot filled,
and anybody who is let me just put this up. So if you or someone wants to be a guest on this, we kind of reserved this particular Fridays to be, for you, for first and third Fridays for you. Fourth Fridays won't resume until January, and then that'll be weather permitting, because we know the first 3 months, January, February, March, are iffy. But to be a guest, you can email me at drgsofficial@gmail.com, or call the number that everybody knows, or text me and give me the details of who you are and what you'd like to discuss. Or if it's somebody you want to recommend, I would hopefully it's somebody that you've already talked to. I don't want to cold call anybody.
Yeah.
But if you have someone that would be of interest, particularly on Office Hours with Dr. G, and we are going to be branding that channel. I do have another channel, Office Hours with Dr. G, and moving some of my stuff over there.
Yeah.
So that this one be more geared to the science, the more science, and that one over there I could do my metaphysical stuff and my other stuff. So y'all won't come on here and be all flustered because we're not talking about more science. I mean, there's more to me than that. More to him than that. Believe it or not.
And the metaphysics is more science,
right? But metaphysics, I'm into astrology. I do readings. I do divination. Y'all don't know that. And anybody who's interested, I'm going to say this since we're still talking, and 690 of y'all or so are still here. I'm going to have a special on the AO scan. But for anybody who's looked into and wanted to get an AO scan and said, that price is cost prohibitive, for me to get a scanner myself. Good news. And I was a little slow and derelict of not telling people this, but you can literally just pay the monthly subscription, and now it'll scan without purchasing the device. You could download it to your own cell phone and do the same things that I do. You do have to pay the monthly subscription, but you won't have to buy a $500 or phone to do it. You'll be able to do that. And so I'm going to put this up here because I think that's important. I think every household
now
should have it. You should have this ability to be able to find out not only what's going on with you, to get educated about what's going on with you, but to be able to do something about it, from a frequency standpoint. And I would be bringing Dr. Mark. As a matter of fact, I recorded Dr. Mark when I had the opportunity, y'all, when I was in at Atlanta last week to go to Dr. Mark's Hemke Wellness Center and have a marvelous time. I got in a med bed. He has the med bed there, and I literally, you get in that machine and you're spinning at I don't know what. I felt the first spin, but I thought
afterwards you don't.
Well, I didn't realize I was spinning the whole time. But the wild thing about it was that in this particular bed that he has, which is a beta, it actually can go back 9 generations. Like you can if you're dealing with emotional trauma, PTSD, or some kind of issues, he can program it And what it can
Mhm.
do is go back 9 generations and heal 9 generations back and go 9 generations forward, so that trauma,
Mhm.
you break the epigenetic connection.
Yes.
And so I had the opportunity to, I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience with Dr. Mark. And I think he told me a few have come to see him since he was on the show. So we're going to be doing some workshops. But in order to do the things that we're going to try, we're going to do in 2024, we need to pay for this channel.
Mhm.
By the 7th, we need $2,508, y'all. Look, it's like it's 600 and some of y'all in here. Divide yourself up. Everybody give. Look, how many 600 and some people to 25. What is
candy wrapper.
I can't figure it out. But y'all know what it is. It could be $5 or whatever it is for. But or join and become a sustaining member and just give nine notes and let your first 9 be like before December 6th.
Yeah.
So either way, I mean, it's gonna have to get paid because
Yeah.
they're gonna take it directly. They're gonna take it from somewhere else, and we might not be able to pay the dead pledge. But I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that because I know y'all.
Put that energy
No,
out.
not put the energy. I know you all are going to support. You all have always, and you've always come. Like the Calvary right on time. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you, and again, I didn't put this up, but remember, we are having our next year event. Save the date, April 27th, 28th, and 29th. We're calling it Spring into Action Conference because this time, Grand Sheik, we need actionable outcomes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't know what will happen between now and then, but we do know
we do know some things that are going to be happening between now and then,
and we need to get prepared.
Yeah. Stay focused. Let's be honest. Because it ain't about gloom and doom. It's about reality. The lack of knowing that they're waging war on us is dangerous for you to be passive. Right now, between now and that same time, more than half of the so-called bank accounts will be dead. That's number one. They're not going to be making any loans on any big ticket items like commercial properties or cars. So expect a lot of people in the auto industry to be out of jobs within these next months. Expect many of the big cities to go into bankruptcy. So don't buy anything. Don't put yourself in debt on anything big because you're going to be underwater. Well, we've been telling you that for years, but we're telling you again now. So reserve, take what you can before the alarm bells come major in the public. We've been telling you for the last couple of years, take everything out of the banks, even though we know they're vouchers. The deal of it is with the CBDCs, they're going to be shutting you off altogether for control because they're going to be executing a lot of the advanced control systems in order to save themselves. So to make sure that you and your family members have some levels of survival, make sure that you start putting things away in cans, like galvanized cans, dry beans, rice, things like that.
Water,
etc.
Clean water.
Also, make sure you do some studies on how to clean rainwater, etc. We're not trying to alarm you, just telling you the reality of what's going on.
There's a lot of survival information on the USB drive. So y'all need to check.
And remember,
but they need to check that if they haven't looked at under House of Real Awakening Minds in that folder. I have put a lot of survival information there, and check out some of that stuff, and just be mindful of it. Aware of it that those are options,
and avoid distracted conversations from the mainstream.
because they talk mess. You know, they showed again today how everybody was saying again, all these newscasters all over were saying the same thing.
Oh,
Remember,
They're
they get the,
upping the ante.
they get a narrative, they get the memo, and
They're
everybody
upping
is
the ante.
everybody is. If you look, turn on all the channels, they're pretty much, you can overlap, and they're all talking in unison. So you know, we need to do that. We need to think in unison. And again, I want to shout out to my sisters who came to Atlanta last Saturday. We had a time at Atlanta. We got some stuff, you know, done, said. We did some, you see what's in front of you right there?
Mhm.
We actually did. I'm gonna have them make them, I don't know, available on the on our website. But we canceled. Yeah, we did some cancellations. We canceled our bond cancellations for live birth certificates and marriage bonds.
Yes.
And then we filled them out. We filled them out for ourselves, our children, whatever. And we burned these things. And yes, we put our, you know, we did it symbolically, but we know that what we do at the spiritual level will come to pass in the physical if you have, you know, if that's what you are focusing on. And so we had a time, short of not being not pressing the record button. we had
and a matter of fact, what might be of interest too, Dr. J, like you said, on Tuesday, you can go over this.
Mm-hmm.
You can go over the history of this, the bond ownership.
Mm-hmm.
You can go over 55 Water Street and derivatives, because these are part of the derivatives and people don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And these are part of the bonds that have funded the corporation. And I know that people don't make that association. So you can do with the 2 executive orders, right, with Roosevelt, because it's tied to this. So put it together, and then the people have perspective. Then they'll also have a consciousness of why the ritual of the burn is done.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also can be referenced as rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Right. Although it's not limited to these, then it has real meaning. You know, it won't appear to be a shallow thing, if you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, most people, even though you're doing this, still don't know what these bonds are, right, or that they are bonds.
Right. These are the things that these BRICS nations are saying.
They're countering.
Yeah. So
they're dumping them.
Yeah, and we burnt ours. We yep. Symbolically burnt.
Yep.
You know, we symbolically burnt. And so with that. Oh, putting everything back. With that, we thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and at any time you're here. And again, we appreciate in advance. We thank you for your support of what we're trying to do. And yes. We got rid of that stuff. So, but we have a lot more things to do, and I'm looking forward to us being able to be more on that other channel and less on this, so that we don't have to worry about, we don't have to mince our words, we don't have to pull punches, because it's getting ready to get to the point, y'all, where we're gonna have to, you know, really say some stuff, to do some stuff, and we really need to be able to do it offline. And you know, the best way for us to do it is to have the channel that channel allows us to have 10,000 viewers at one time. So, you know, we somebody's calling my thing. Okay, we've been on longer than we know.
Longer than long.
Look, the thing that normally Bishop, I don't know who Bishop Jingling is, but I have to call you back. So anyway, okay, we leaving. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Joanne Gray. Thank you. Appreciate
Islam,
that. Thank you for your donation, and thank you. And thank you for those who pay attention to the trolls.
Yes.
You know, so I might have been a little slow, but I had to go back up and look and see what they were saying to figure out which one needed to go. And so, you know, but we're gonna get some what do you call them, monitors, or they call monitors. I know Sister Cuz I said so, who I met. She came to Atlanta. How can you donate? She has she wants to be a I think it's called a moderator, a
Mhm.
moderator. So we'll get a couple of you moderators. They probably be blocking everybody. We're like, I didn't do it. We got moderators now. They're doing it. Who is that? Thank you. How can I donate? So again, donations can be, if you please go to the website. If you go to the website, I think all that, but donations for Cash App is right here. What's it? RE can't spell KEN. Who asked me that? Boom. I can't put that many at BOOOOOOO. There's pretty more O's. And I'm giving you this. But please, you can also go to our website, houseofreawakeningminds.com. And I think there's a link there for donations. And especially that's Cash App. But if you want to do a reoccurring donation, you want to do it on PayPal, right? PayPal.me/ I think it looks like this. I think it's funny. Gilliam at Gmail or something like that. Something like that. That may be wrong. Let me look. I won't put the wrong thing up here, y'all. We're getting ready to go, but I just want to see what it says. I don't even know what it says. No, what did it say? Oh, Naila Gilliam. Okay. See, I was getting ready to do it wrong. Anyway. So if you go to there, you know, you can do recurring. Okay, donations. Y'all, I can't spell donations. I'm tired. All right, here we go. So there it is. There again. Thank you. We're leaving. I'm tired. Sheik, I know you're tired. You got an early start tomorrow. So we thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. And until next time. We out of here.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds.